Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Black Box Thinking by Matthew Seed, and we have a lot of topics to discuss, so it will be kind of slow paced. So you have to bear with me as it will take a lot of time. So I guess maybe you guys may have not understand what this is all about. uh, what the hell is black box thinking. So in order to illustrate that as an example, so you guys are more familiar with it, let's say two guests go inside a bar, and one buys a glass of water and another buys a coconut water. And let's say they finish the drinks, and then the waiter comes, and you know the waiter can tell that the glass of water is done, but the coconut water, it's very hard to tell because it's a real physical coconut water. So they cannot tell what the waiter cannot tell whether it's done or not. So a black box can represent the coconut water where you cannot see what's inside. Another example can be like account balance. You may know your account balance, but you may not know your other's acquaintance bank account balance. So you may know they may give you errands to do and other stuff, and it may be like very very hard to uh, ask her what's her bank account balance. Maybe she wants to suppress it, or maybe she gives you a fake number so she looks good, and you don't have to worry. So the most straightforward way is to use that bank account on every physical store until one store declines that credit card. So like uh, that example sounds outrageous, and I'm just giving that example only for illustration purposes, because who would really want to know someone else's bank account balance? uh, but in other cases where we need to know the information to make our society better, then it is quite important to know someone's information. And it is not very straightforward, because doing it in a straightforward, like in the example before, it is kind of inappropriate and also even illegal. So the only way to get that information is by the individual itself to express the truth. So now that we understand in some way what a black box is, we have to see like how the black box is in today's society. So if we have to represent a black box in today's society, then we have to treat it like a Pandora box. Why? Oh, okay, yeah, Pandora box. Yes, that mythological box, like in those movies you have seen. They open, and through the lenses of the perception, they all see is something dark or very gloomy. Not very nice to say. So how do I came to that conclusion? Well, it is very obvious that society as a way we create norms through each individual, whether that is really a person or an organization, some norms to protect some information to pop up, so they hide them like a coconut water. So that happens. Examples: companies try to create norms to hide information in order to avoid costs. They have a lot of expectations, like if it's also publicly traded, from companies for their estimated revenues and other stuff. If it goes down below the expectations, then a lot of people will get fired because the stock goes down. They cannot have enough funds to meet the demands they could before. So other industries have a lot of costs. It's like very very expensive for them, and they focus only on costs, and not and when you focus only on costs, you only care more about your own company instead of being socially responsible. You don't look at the big picture of things. So and those norms can be examples like, in order to to hide some stuff, people give, for instance, severance packages to employees so they can hide some information so they don't lawsuit them or something like that. Another very very big thing is the norms that we put on interviews. The interviews, like individuals that have to go, they have to focus only on their strengths, and that is like a way. I mean, the information that we hide is so outrageous that I don't know like how individuals can improve themselves by using such norms. But it is not any other way that they can get career opportunities otherwise. Like, let's look at that matter. If the individual did a bad public stand, or he did a mistake the whole white company knows about, and so on and so on, like bad credit score and other stuff, then the employee has like little to no chances to have any good great career opportunities to himself, because we as a society, we attribute anything negative as a dead end for them, in the same way as organizations we do. And because of that, uh, people have to hide that information. They have to only focus on their strengths, and we and that is one of the biggest challenges. uh, even companies, on their self-respect, I just figured like recently that they also don't want to give feedback back to, because they don't know if their procedures are really the most effective ones. So there's both channels are really not giving feedback, really sincere feedback to each other, like, yeah, and they only focuses on their strengths. So uh, even let's even go more detail, like, employers will not give bad news about an employee if he gets interviewed to another company, former employers, right? Because they know that if they give negative feedback, then he will not get hired. So they know how the structure of the things works, like how society treats like some mistake, as a thing that that they cannot, have some a thing that, they cannot, it's a mistake, it's a thing that it's a dead end, like, that we categorize them, that, they are like junk, or we treat them like, we put them in categories, instead of saying, maybe that they learned something from that mistake, and it was part of the personal growth. So then we have self-interest. Okay, this is a very competitive sport in criminal justice system, with lawyers that have to support their clients, and that is totally amazing. What happens there is the actual events, they are either hidden, and we will see later also twisted, if they can, if they get contested where every public person knows about that evidence. So and the other thing is a lot of roles, like C-level suite executives, doctors, pilots, loggers, and others. We have high expectations on their roles. So if so because of that high expectation, people on those roles want to have a clean sheet where they don't do any mistakes even in the future, or if they did something on the past, they just try to hide it. So you know uh, we will see like hiding that information makes our society a less better place. So we go to our first example, and that first example is the airplane industry. Okay, so there were one airplane industry which was United Airlines, and on United Airlines, what the problem is, it went from New York to Oregon, I think. I am not familiar. It usually takes 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it had a problem with the landing gears. So to be more precise about that, uh, the problem of that airplane incident had only 10 casualties, okay? But the other two airplanes had the same issue, the landing gears, and had more casualties than the one that we're going to discuss right now. One of them crashed on a mountain, and all the passengers were dead, and another one, um, uh, that one also hit on the Everglades and killed over 100 people. So this one only 10 people. And why are we talking about this one? Because the black box inside that airplane transcribed the events of the conversation, which has the most, and those conversation gives us the most evidence to find out the reason why all those 3 airplanes, uh, uh, you know, uh, crashed due to the landing gears. So the plane that we're talking now, the United Airline. That plane, it took like 2 hours and 30 minutes to arrive on the arrival, and everything was smooth. The landing gears, they put the landing gears so they can arrive on the airport. And the problem with that is there were two technical problems when they lift down the landing gears. One of it, there was a thud sound which reverberated all around the airplane, and all the passengers got scared and frustrated. And the other one was the lights of the landing gear were not shown up. So if the crew wanted to see on the on the windows, they were not able to. The lights were not illuminated. So we have those two problems. And they say that on the radio control. They say, these are the problems. Okay, you can do some circles until you find and figure out to solve that problem. And 25 minutes passed, and something another problem happened at that point. Another technical problem. The low fuels of the airplane were low. Okay, so everybody on the knows basic elementary on all airplane industries, that if the fuel reserves are low, then it means that after 5 minutes, if you don't start landing your plane, the risks will be more devastating for every minute that the plane doesn't decide to land. So the crew told the captain, that uh, the fuel reserves are low. Okay, so he didn't reply. 5 minutes passed. Still, the pilot was focused on the landing gears, and the crew gave him a second warning and said, "Yeah, captain, the fuel reserves are low." And after 5 minutes, that's the like the time is like over. Okay, if you land your plane now, or the consequences will become more severe for every minute that passes. But everybody was shocked when the captain replied, "What are you guys talking about? We have like 15 minutes left." Okay, so of course, that was not really the case. Um, but and the thing is, the crew could not challenge the captain, because at that time on the airplane industry, the organization was hierarchical. So they had, even if that answer was irrational, they had to follow the orders of the captain. And let's cut here on for a second and look at the captain background. Okay, this captain had like over 25 years of experience, veteran of World War II. As a young child, he said to his mom, "Hey, I want to be a pilot." That was his dream. So how can he avoid such elementary principles of airplane industry? Okay, so we have to look at it from his own shoes of perspectives. Okay, if that pilot hide that information of the full reserves, like. And I think also the other two airplane incidents did the same thing. Why? Because uh, if he if he landed the plane without the landing gears, right, the passengers would say this pilot tried his best and he couldn't still find how to properly land the plane. He couldn't lower the landing gears, and he was about to kill our life. What would you think about that pilot future career will be? Will he still uh, fly more planes based on that? He didn't have a clean sheet. One of them was, like very bad news. The plane was screwed up with the landing gears. Will he still have a positive career? And now, whether the fuel reserves are low or the landing gears, uh, were not there, it didn't matter to him, because the new situation with the low fuel reserves, because either way he will still be blamed for landing a plane without the landing gears. Uh, but the most important at that situation was, yes, you have to land the plane without the landing gears. You have the correct theory, like in his mind should have been, which one of those technical problems has the highest priority. uh, it's the low fuel reserves, fix that first. He didn't have that in his mind. 15 minutes passed and the plane was dropping 3,000 feet per minute. The captain was oblivious, okay, like he didn't know what happened. And he asked his crew, like, what happened? Okay, the crew would say, the fuels are low. So the captain didn't know what to say. He tried to land the plane, and only 10 fatalities happened. Days later, the captain asked the private investigator that looked about the airplane incident whether the fuel reserves had leaks. So he was still stuck in his theory, about the landing gears. And we go to another example. This one is on individual level, right? Okay, let's go to one with organizational level. Okay, so we go to the health industry. Okay, and on one hospital on Palo Alto. Okay, so that one, healthcare industry is like, oh my god. Okay, the costs over the years have risen very high. They have very low budgets, so a lot of hospitals focus on costs. And like I said before, if you focus on costs, then you may have adding business value to your organization, but you are less socially responsible, and in the long term you're not making a good brand to yourself. Okay, so here we have the hospital of Palo Alto. A doctor had a mom had a daughter which had some symptoms, which can only be treated by inserting a central line. And that during a year she was treated on that hospital. After lawsuits and litigations, they were found out that that hospital inserted the central line 4 times in a bad way, where she got central line infection. So, you know, every time she became weaker, then the next time some of her organs became weak. And then at the end, she got a virus, and she died only within a year. So her mother, tried to find out why her daughter, what happened actually to her daughter. The hospital, told, well, they give an apology. They are empathetic about her, but they don't give details more. And studies suggest, that if you say an apology letter or something like that, then there will be like less likely that the individual will lawsuit you, sue you. So her mother sued her, and even under litigation, the hospital didn't answer the details about what actually happened. It had to be pushed to be found until there were like 4 central line infections. The mother even said, like, even on her first letters before she filed the lawsuit, that I found out that one of your nurses touched the bed rail before inserting touched the bed rail uh, before with the gloves that she still used later to insert the central line. Those are not well sanity ways. And they didn't want to take responsibility. They didn't want to admit their mistakes because they cared about costs. They had to have the least costs and not to have any litigation. And that way they were not able to reduce the central line infections. Now now the another hospital, you know accepted the mistake. Okay, and they said, okay, we have a guideline, we have a checklist. Somebody monitors, somebody that they follow all the procedures of every central line infection a nurse does. And what happened is, like, in 3 months 50% of the central line infections were reduced, and in 6 months 70% line infections reduced. That was the Hopkins Hospital, which identified the problem and tried to solve it. And now let's go. And now let's go back to our previous case, which is the airplane industry. Okay, so on the airplane industry, what do they do? How did we cut all that conversation that we heard? They open the black box in the airplane, which has all the conversation. The other thing, which is interesting, is we have, like, also private investigators which try to which have a mindset that does not have any motivation to hide information like the pilot did, or an organization like the healthcare industry does. So and then they can have public reports where everybody can learn. Of course, the airplane carrier, will get scrutinized, and it will have less credibility. But that mistake, that it becomes transparent, everybody can learn. so it does not happen again. So a lot of times that landing gear problem happened often, but it did not happen often after they got all the events. And the solutions they did was, the pilot has to have a checklist, okay, to check like every component is healthy during an emergency situation like the fuel reserves. And the other thing is the captain also learned to have some assertiveness to the passengers and crew. And next time a captain, is, only motivated by his own selfish career, he will not do that because he knows that the norms are more important than his clean sheet of record. And if he violates the norms, then he will have like more consequences. And that's how a norms organization helps to create employees that become better candidates, that are more socially responsible rather than uh, only their line of career. So we are almost to an end. I think most of you now will understand what black box thinking is. So here I have like some paper here, and okay, now it's clear. So here we have an individual that uses that stuffs in black box due to a motivation. Okay, this is horrible, but bear with me. This is my first try on this. Yeah, individual that stuffs a black box due to a motivation. Now you see, okay, information that challenges a theory, okay, like in this, okay, where's my finger? Okay, here we go. Information that challenges a theory, in this case, can be like the central line infections or the landing or the low fuel reserves, and we try to hide it. Okay, now here we have public information that cannot be hidden, and we warp it or twist that information to fit in. That is called cognitive dissonance. So in some cases, we always try to protect our theory, okay? And our theory is limited, okay? So our theory is limited. Um, it's like, when people say they are too focused, it means they are too narrow focused, where they don't see the general picture, where they are not very socially responsible. So, for instance, on the airplane industry, they were very narrow-minded, only on their own career prospect, or only from or the health industry. They only look at from their own organizational point. So the theory gets locked, okay, and that's a very big problem. But sometimes, like I said here, you cannot, evidence comes there, you try to hide it, but you cannot hide it. It gets contested. It's everybody knows on the public. And now we're going to see one of them, the criminal justice system, uh, of the Juan Ramirez. I don't remember the name because I don't have it right here. He was convicted for rape, and he was convicted there. He was an innocent guy, but he was convicted for rape for 20 years. And the point is, he testified under, they were forced to testify, to make him testify something that he didn't did, because he had a lot of psychological problems, and only by his testimony and no other evidence he was convicted for first degree murder, for a rape. So 15 years passed. That's an estimate. That and they found like some evidence that of the rape murder, that the DNA does not match with the person that they put in prison. And the lawyers, due to their self-interest, right, to protect their face and also from the client, and to bring some justice, what they did without evidence that says, he did not did the rape. Oh, okay, the lawyers say. Well, what? And they tried to twist the information to fit in the theory that still that guy was the person, the murderer of that rape. And they said maybe somebody else raped her, and after he was done, then that guy went in the door and he killed her. So somebody else did that, and after that, the next sequence, he went there and he killed her. So we see that this situation is very less likely to happen, and the only testimony they have is one that was really forced, and that he testified, you know, at that point, our legal system is to put somebody in jail until, uh, where there's enough decisive evidence. So until proven he's not guilty, So here you have less evidence to contest him that he's guilty, and they twisted theoretical stories, and he was still in jail. That can also be attributed to also to judges, where when they at evening times, when they may be more lenient on being more rational, but at morning times they are not very rational because maybe they didn't get their lunch or something. So it's very interesting to take note of that. But regardless of that, what I want to say is, even when the information comes in, we try to fit it in a theory, okay? And usually all of that is due to a motivation, okay? And if you really want to know what's the motivation, I guess you can just look at the introduction that we spoke of. That will make you sense. Now, here we go to some philosophers, okay? We go with philosopher Buber, okay? And philosopher Buber had brought two concepts: I it and I too, okay? So I too really sees things from the perspective of their theory, okay? It's a time when we really daydream, where we are immersed on something else, and we don't look information from the external environment. So 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 in such sense, people are immersed on the external environment, and it's good to be immersed on external environment to process information, like solving a problem like the landing gear. But we have to improve that theory to a better one that fits more on the bigger picture. And if we are too focused, when we mean too narrow focused, then we're not being very socially responsible. So if that makes and then the I it is when we focus on the external environment, when we are present in this environment. And Buber have said that we go into those two dimensions from time to time, daydreaming and then looking at the external environment. And how do we react on the external environment, like whether we accept that information to fit in the theory that we are immersed or we don't, is very, very critical. And now we go to the other one, the one that uses black box, opens the black box to use it if it's not visible, so to solve a solution, like the airplane fuel reserves being low. Okay, here we go again. Oh my god, this camera does not like to focus. Individual that uses black box when it is required. What candidates can this be? The private investigator, of course, on an airplane industry. Who else can be more without a motivation to find out the truth? And then a beginner's mind. I will talk to you later about a beginner's mind. Information that challenges a theory expresses that info, even if it's not visible. If nobody shows it, I will show it to you, and influences the theory to adapt with the new information. The theory changes. Okay, so here we have like two versions, one that stuffs in black box, the other one that uses the black box. And it seems like we have to go to another philosopher. Uh, now it's about Thomas Kuhn, Scientific Revolution. I mean, even the black box thinking was influenced by this book. A lot of people, even me, got influenced by that book. And what it really says is, a lot of the revolutions in the science that happened over our community happened from people that were new to the science community, that had a beginner set of mindset. And those were able to fit existing information that was rejected by the old people in the scientific community that had a lot of experience, and create a better theory. And it was like a life and death cycle where new science revolutions happened due to other people who had a more beginner mind. And also, that a private investigator is also a beginner's mind. Um, So what we can say about is this is a problem that we have today in society, very very wide. And the thing how to fix that is, well, we have a lot of ways to fix that. Okay, we have private investigators. The other thing is we do anonymous reporting. Anonymous reporting really really helps. Okay, so if I have, so if if my motivation makes me not to disclose information, then how can I disclose information? Anonymous reporting. I will not get punished. I can disclose it. Um, but there are other forms that you can see that do not help. Instead, we stuff things in the black box. For instance, companies do not provide feedback, or employees or people are not very transparent on their work. That is very obvious. Like the Facebook, we call it the Facebook effect. We only focus only on the good stuff and we hide all the bad stuff. And also, like companies, when an employee has a problem about the company, what they say is, here's your severance package, don't tell anything what happened, don't lawsuit us, hide that information. So we have a lot of problems in society that stuff things in a black box. And the main reason because of that is because I said on the beginning, is because people want to blame stuff and based on the negative things they did, and instead it should be part of their personal growth. So how can we change that? I mean, look, as a community, like we use like that Facebook thing, and scientists, neurologists, or others were not able to create a social network that make individuals better. So they created a product that it's still good, but it people can do whatever they want. So we have a paradigm here. A person can do whatever they want, and I have also discussed that in my blog, which you can see. And to summarize about it is, uh, we have done a lot of atrocities when a person tries to influence another person, and that that can be like the World War II, and the schemes that they created, like Germany. I mean, or the slavery, the big slavery that happened. Yeah, those are can just be like some few examples. What happens when we use a theory to impose another person, and it's not done in a rational manner, and we don't want to do that again. So that's why we have a free world where we can do anything we want, like, you know without influencing the other person. So that's why uh, we are very sensitive, you know, and we are very irrational on how we handle, uh, how we categorize people when they do mistakes. We're not very rational on the personal matters, and so you see, the solution right now, what we do is, the old people don't know what they do, or the old organizations don't know what they do, put the new people in to replace the old people. It's a life and death cycle. Okay, and then after 5 years replace with somebody else. So this is like a cycle, a vicious cycle. And what I want really to do is all of the individuals, even the ones that stuff in black box, let's transform them in order to exponentially grow our community, um, uh, long term wise, uh, to make a community where we can learn from from the mistakes. And the only way to do that is like this book, like this black box book, is based on neurology or neuroscience and other stuff. All of I mean, all of this stuff, even in my blog, it all comes back to neurology and back to cause and effect based on the personal individual. It's by studies and all that. And the thing is, it's a very closed community. It's not part of the business. Okay, it's not a part that we live in every day. It's a side. It's a very sidestep thing. Like it's a mini project. It's like a pet project. It's like the scientist community in the Renaissance age, where they used science to create weapons of mass destruction. It's in the same sense in here. Personal development is used right now in these days just to meet the gratification of people through entertainment and other types of ways. But at the same time, we have made a society that is very, very convenient for us, where we don't have to do a lot of manual work. Everything's automated, everything is abstract. But in terms of quality of communication, we are still on the stone ages, because we have chosen to be whatever we want to be, to do. And that is great. Like, it is great to have a choice whether we want to to stuff things in a black box or be more socially responsible. But I think as a community, I think we should say that, it's more valuable, that individual, if he focuses, he chooses to be more socially responsible. And that concludes me that I want to create a social network, and I want to bootstrap that social network. I'm gonna experiment it, and I will even volunteer if there's some similar social networks like that, that focuses on neurology, that solves problems like the ones that black box, the black box thinking is. And that way we can make our community better. I think quality of relationships is a thing that everybody demands, and they have problems every day. So why don't we make it in a universal way, a social network that has the main building blocks to make our life better? Some of the stuff I have it on my blog, and it's based on the model of mental symmetry, and I think that is the closest one. Because people right now, scientists, they just they only are very professional only in one field, but they don't integrate all those fields into one, where it can be applied to the individual to make their life better. And at the same time, it would be simple, and it would be simple like a bicycle at first, but then we can make it like a bullet train. Like, now it's really crap what we will create, bootstrap, but it will still be helpful to individuals to understand me, understand others, and so on. So that is my adventure. I don't know what, but that will be my motivation. Bootstrap something, an idea. If it doesn't work out, other companies may just follow, just motivate them to create something, volunteer them, work with them. I don't know, but that is all. I'm just an individual. I understand, I have a wife, I have my limits. I understand that I cannot do everything, but at the same time, I can just volunteer. And thanks for watching, and that was my motivation, the black box thinking, and also my motivation of the future. Thank you.